live. So can we get the roll call, please?
Oh, sorry. Okay, sorry about that.
That's okay.
Hi, David Alvarado,
Here.
Cheryl Sudeth, we already got a affirmative on that. Sherry Stanley. And I'm sorry about not leaving your positions off. Director Harry Weiner.
Here.
And Director Cesar Zepeda.
Here.
Thank you very much.
All right, next item is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
with liberty and justice
for all.
As soon as possible.
All right, next item, please.
It is approval of the agenda. Any member of the board may request an agenda item be postponed, removed, or heard out of order. An item may not be added to the agenda unless it meets the requirements of an emergency situation as defined in Government Code Section 54956.5.
All right, we got a motion to approve the agenda.
I move that we accept the agenda as is.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Please take the roll.
Yes, was that Director Zepeda who seconded?
Correct.
Thank you.
I think you can do this by unanimous. You don't have to do a vote.
I think on
What would you like?
I think Mick.
Yeah, Mick said last time we needed to, so let's
Any
just do it
remote
a little
meeting.
further.
You said that
Yeah,
in full roll call.
has to be
Yeah.
right roll call.
Okay. President Alvarado,
Yes.
Cheryl Sudeth,
He's just shadowing the meeting, so go ahead.
Director Sherry Stanley, Director Weiner,
Yes.
and Director Zepeda.
Yes.
Sherry's chat says yes.
Thank you.
She is moving into the meeting right now.
All right, next item, please.
Next item is public comments. Would you like me to read through this? I did not receive any.
We didn't have any public comments, and there's no public listening or seeing the meeting. No, just next item.
Next item is the workshop. Receive an update by CV Strategies on the development of a new strategic plan and complete the annual review of mission, vision, core values, and strategic goals.
Okay, take it away.
Thanks. So this is the second meeting of the strategic planning process. As you remember, we had a session, I believe, in January. And we were scheduled to meet again in March, and we had to reschedule that. So we have had numerous meetings, the executive leadership team with CV Strategies working directly with Tara. And what you're going to see today is the outcome of all of those meetings and discussions, and I think you'll be very pleased with the product that we've put together. I did just want to say, I heard this morning the governor of New York say something that I thought was really relevant to us, which was that they were going to reimagine New York, not just go back to the way things were. And I think that was very meaningful to us as well, because I think as we move through this, many of the things that we had already planned are actually things that have become even more relevant since we've been in this situation. And I think what we're talking about today and moving forward is really reimagining West County wastewater. And I think you'll see that in what we present today. So with that, I'm gonna pass it over to Tara, and she's gonna lead the meeting.
All right, so let's start with, I'm gonna share my screen. I'm going to see a little bouncing circle really quickly. This is the only part that's not fun about technology.
It works, sort of.
It works kind of most of the time.
Kind of works.
Okay. Can everybody see that?
Yep. Yep.
Okay, great. So just to kind of go back in time, we had a really in-depth discussion of the mission, vision, values, and what became from goals, principles. So I wanted to kind of go through that. We've now done that process. So we've now come back with 3 options of the mission and vision, and then some principles to establish or tweak slightly as the case may be. So with that, I will start with the mission options. So you can see 3 mission options in front of me, which are to protect public health through safe, responsible wastewater collection and treatment, recovering the water for reuse, and promoting environmental stewardship for the West County community. That now, just to kind of give you an idea of what your current, I'm going to end the show and go, what your current mission statement is. It's actually very close to that. I'll pull this over here. You can tell I'm always on 8 million different things I'm monitoring. Come on. Is that we protect public health and the environment by safely and responsibly treating wastewater for reuse. So as you can tell, it's not incredibly different. It's fairly similar. It protects public health. It's just rewritten a little bit in each of these options so that it's a little bit more streamlined than the current version. Does anybody have any? Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, are we able to see them side by side so that we can see the differences?
Absolutely.
Any chance?
So there is the current version. I'm gonna try and make this. I'm used to doing this on a handout, which is not, there we go. So you can kind of see we get away from the setup of our mission is to. So it's just your mission is protect public health through safe and responsible. So it's a little bit tweaked.
So I can only see one still. I'm not sure. Can anybody else see 2?
I can't see 2.
Okay.
And it might be, you might only be sharing one document.
Yep. There we go.
Oh, perfect.
How about that?
Yep. Can see it better now. Thank you.
Absolutely.
All right, you ready for questions on this slide, Tara?
I am ready for questions.
All right, so we're going to
This is a
go.
workshop.
All right, we're going to be going in the same order as we normally do, with starting off with Director Stanley. Any questions?
Thoughts,
I'm
opinions?
not checking chat, so if she has a question, Gina, please let me know.
Can you hear me, David?
I can hear you now.
Okay. I just got everything all turned on, so can you pause me for a while and come back to me later?
Sure thing. We'll come back to you last, okay?
Thank you.
All right, no problem. Next up is Director Weiner.
So I read them over. I really can't choose because they all seem to be exactly the same with just very minor. I mean, I don't see their goal, our mission to be very different depending on one of these three lines.
Mm-hmm.
I hope someone has a different opinion than me, but I don't see it, so I don't have a strong feeling.
You're okay for now? We can move on to the next person?
Yes.
All right. Director Cepeda?
They look good. My only thought is, what about changing West County to either the community we serve or our community? And the only reason I have that is because I think there was a thought of possibly, as we change our logo, possibly even changing our name. And if we go that direction, we don't want to go back and re-update our mission statement to change the name, to just leaving it broad, because we also don't serve all of West Contra Costa County. We only serve a portion of it. West Contra Costa County has a lot of other cities that we don't touch.
Okay, that's a valid point. Anything else, Director Cepeda?
No, that's it for right now that I can see. Thank you.
All right. Director Stanley, are you ready now?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay. Fire away.
I agree with Director Cepeda in saying our community, and for exactly the reasons he said. And I seem to recall, and correct me if I'm wrong, anybody, I think we just changed the tense, sort of, or make it more assertive in what we were saying. And I happen to like this way better. So I'm good.
So which of the three do you?
Go ahead, Harry. Finish your thought.
What?
Director Weiner, I believe, had a point.
Yeah, Sherry, which do you think is the stronger of the three?
What do you mean the stronger of the three? They all go together, right?
I thought they were all, each one was.
So they're different.
They're all
different selections.
slightly different, saying the same thing.
Oh.
Exactly.
I was going back and forth. Okay, I'll come back to me then. Sorry.
Okay.
If I could add one thing, the
Sure.
with the mission statement, you're not going to see it be dramatically different because our mission is something that doesn't change. So really, the only intent of kind of doing a little bit of work to this was just to tighten up the statements. And I think any three of those statements, as Director Weiner said, are very similar, but the mission statement remains the same. So, I think you can decide if there's one that speaks to you more than the others, but I wouldn't I wouldn't worry about, unless you have a strong feeling that, again, one is better than the other or you hate one of them. They're all pretty much saying the same thing with just a little bit of making the words a little bit tighter and, perhaps the suggestion of moving West County to just community, things like that. So I just didn't want you guys to get too hung up on trying to figure that piece out and find what was dramatic.
I have a comment.
Sure.
Yes.
Well, I'm still trying to figure out which one I like better, but we don't really do well. We, meaning me, I don't really do well when I don't get an agenda that tells this stuff that we're seeing here, where I've had more than a little bit of time to look at it and something like pick one to think about it. So I have heard since I've been in this office, hurry, 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 and we don't do very much that really tells what we do, and this is one of the things that does, and I don't care how long it takes.
Yeah, we're not asking you to choose one today. We're just presenting the information, and this item will come back. We're getting this is some feedback based on the first meeting that we had, and this is just bringing back to some ideas. as presentation, and this item will have to come back to the full board to vote on. So I think we're just looking for some input if you have any.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the if you look at the item, it doesn't say we need to make any decisions today. This is merely an update, and updated information on the information that ultimately we're going to have to debate and vote on.
Okay, great. Thank you for that clarification.
You're welcome.
And if there's any direction you like or want to see, for example, the communities we serve is a great direction for us to incorporate as we go forward.
Well, can't we say our community?
Sure.
Yeah, I think that point was made by Director Cepeda, which you kind of like as well, and I also kind of like it. So I think that's a viable option for us in that.
So as long as there's nothing that we hate about any of these and we can move on, then let's move on to the vision, because that's a fairly dramatic shift versus the mission, which is a really subtle shift.
All right, does anybody else have any more comments or questions before we move on to vision?
No, we're going to get a copy of this, right?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, I think it's safe to move on.
Okay, great. So in keeping with kind of this dual screen, so you can see currently the vision is to be an integrated partner to make our planet better for future generations. So using the information that we discussed last time, here are the versions that we put together to kind of capture that information. So the first one is to create a holistic plan for environmental stewardship through efficient wastewater management, extensive community engagement, inspirational leadership, and integrated partnerships. Safeguard our natural resources for future generations by working together with our local partners in the community. Collaborate effectively with West County partners to protect our local natural resources today, tomorrow, and for the future. Now that last one, obviously we can pull, since we've already gotten the feedback to pull the West County specific information, we would pull that from there.
All right. Are you gonna, all right, so why don't we move on to the questions or comments portion, and we'll start with Director Stanley again.
Well, my initial response was I liked the first one, but I also don't mind the second one. I don't really know what I think about the third. So I'd go 1, 2, 3 if I was voting right now.
Okay. Director Weiner? Director Weiner?
I'm still thinking about it.
Okay. You want me to come back to you?
Sure.
Director Cepeda?
I agree with Director Stanley. I like the 1, 2, 3. I like the first one. I think it's the holistic plan. I believe it also allows us to not be pigeonholed, because we can grab on other items into this vision as we continue to grow, or other items continue to come onto our desk here. So I think that I like that one a little bit more than the other. So that would be my first choice.
All right, thank you, Director Cepeda. I myself really like number 1. I agree with both Director Cepeda and Director Stanley. Of the 3, I would definitely go with number 1, but that's my opinion. Director Weiner, we ready for you?
Yeah, I agree. Number 1 is really a vision.
Yeah, it is. Of the 3, it's definitely the one that has the biggest vision appetite for me. All right, so I think that's your input for that.
All right, and moving on to values, these did not change. So same, we liked them, so they stayed. And then another section. So this is where last time we kind of got away from the idea of the board creating these goals and really moving and looking to the board as being a guiding entity for this entire strategic planning process, and to create the guiding principles which would determine exactly how the strategic plan would come into play. So leveraging kind of what we talked about, I created just the words surrounding the kind of loose concepts that we talked about in terms of guiding this document and every decision that's made by your staff. So really, these are the things that will come back to going, all right, we want to encourage this, we want to foster these, we want to make decisions every single time with this idea in mind, and we want to focus our efforts on these. So that way, we could then build out the strategic plan to reflect the board's vision.
All right, thoughts, Director Stanley?
Well, first of all, we agreed on the word tenants last time, and that really resonated with me. And lumping everything together and trying to make it all 4 little concise things instead of having the separate goals that we came up with makes it kind of vague for me. And the fact that we go back, we're supposed to review this every year, allows us to pull one of our current goals out or tweak it if we want to, and leaving others the same. By putting everything together the way Tara, you have it, makes it so you can't tweak anything. It's just a whole bunch of words that, quite frankly, to me means nothing. I read that and I don't walk away with anything. I read what we worked hard on for our goals before, and I go, oh, there's their stuff, clear as day. I understand what that says. So I want to keep the goals, but call them tenants.
Director Weiner?
Okay, then go ahead.
I agree with Director Stanley. I'm just trying to stop my phone from making all this noise. Yeah, I agree with Director Stanley that our specific goals have spurred the district in the direction that we desired. And it's been a wonderful thing to see. And I would, I agree with Director Stanley that we can change our goals annually, but to this guiding principles as a replacement for our goals, which I'm not sure that I got that as the purpose, are fine, but they're not fine in the absence of these goals that we came up with. So.
All right. Thank you, Director Weiner. Director Spada?
Yeah. Excuse me. I agree with the sentiment as well. Trying to understand how the two, and I know that we might have discussed this last time we met, but trying to remember how the guiding principles connect to the goals, or do they take over? Do we then have additional goals? And maybe how I interpret goals for the district more or less is sort of a checkup. In my mind, I see it as a checkup list. You know, are we doing this? Are we doing that? Are we doing that? Check, check, check. We're aiming towards zero waste. So what are we doing to do zero waste? You know, etc. The guiding principles, I see them as like it encompasses it all, but it doesn't give us specific enough. And maybe that's the goal of the goals, is to not be so specific. But then where else can we have a specific list or goals that say, in 2020, we have to have done this to be able to reach our carbon negative enterprise by 2031. In 2031, we must have done this to do this. And I don't know, those are then the GM goals, or where else can we see that step? Either I see it as a step, but checklist or list. And I don't know if Tara has an answer for that or not.
Should I address that?
Yes, please.
Okay, so a couple things is, one is the last time we spoke, we had talked about maybe you wouldn't know what the specific super detailed goals would be, and that you wanted staff to sort of work on those using these concepts as the creation of those incredibly measurable goals. Now, I've got a huge document that's about 30 pages, I think, of those very specific step-by-step exactly, and we're going to go over that today to kind of show you where these have led us. But we can absolutely, I'd like to kind of come back to this at the end of this discussion and really get into what we think, what we as a group would think would be useful for staff in order to go the direction that you're hoping they will go, and to see this continue and further what your vision is for this specific piece. So I want to make sure that it's not too prescriptive, but at the same time gets you to the deadline or the end result that you're looking for. When we discussed last time, we were trying to get to very specific SMART goals, and we discussed that those would not necessarily be useful, and to change those things into the tenets. And I'm happy to change principles to tenets. It just seemed a little awkward in the piece, but I'm not dedicated to principles or tenets. They resonate to me similarly. But in the meantime, these things would frame the discussion, and the fact that, you know, leadership is one of the most important things. And when we went through it, and these were the things that you identified as a group, that these were the most important things that you wanted to see developed over the course of the next 5 years. So we'll get into exactly this framework that we've created, but we can obviously alter, change, provide more direction. We're happy to do any of that stuff to make sure that it's done. So,
Sarah,
in the meantime, yes.
Could I ask you to speak to, because I think this is the biggest change, and this is information that is different than what the board has been told previously from other people who worked with them on, you know, there have been 4 different people that we worked with on the strategic plan. And I think that the goals is the part where we always have difficulty, because part of this, as West County sort of evolves, is the understanding of where the board's role is versus where general manager / staff is, and the level of being very specific with those levels. And that, I think, is where the confusion comes from, and I think that's where going from guiding principles versus the detailed information that was in some of these goals previously, that's where there's a disconnect, and from it's a big difference. And so I think that's the part that the board needs a better explanation about. And again, you haven't seen yet the implementation plan that does have all of the level of detail that Tara is talking about, that does replace this, but I think that's where the disconnect is. In going from such a drastic change from these goals to the principles.
So when reviewing your goals prior to meeting with you last time, I looked and said, you know, some of these goals are really just kind of what the district should be doing on a daily basis. It's almost like your mission. For example, like responsibly manage infrastructure. That's really like, you should be doing that. Like that shouldn't be like a goal to reach towards. That should just be a day-to-day activity, for example. And we talked about what was really like how you want the district to be run versus like a specific goal in mind. And there are some boards that really want to supply every single goal. But when we talked about it, we had said maybe you guys wanted to provide more direction and allow your staff to really get into the measurable goals, and then they would be held accountable to those goals and those objectives. And so they've really developed some very extensive and a lot of high level, low level, and then medium level goals and objectives to further this vision that we sort of talked about at the last meeting, which was to really focus on environmental and carbon neutrality. And the carbon neutrality portion was incredibly important. And then to focus efforts on resource stewardship, recovery, and efficiency, and like really highlight the efficiency, really highlight the environmental health, and then encourage the current leadership in what it's been doing and to continue to build on that momentum that you currently have within the organization, the collaborative environment, and then furthering that, go from internal to external through community partnerships and industry networks. So building out that collaborative environment, not just within the organization, but without as well. So those are the things that I really heard and resonated, and like all my notes say all of those things.
It may make more sense when they see the implementation plan too. So
right.
maybe like when
maybe we just,
yeah. That might answer some of those questions better.
Originally, the next phase was going to kind of, we also, as part of this, have worked on a potential new logo, which has gone through many, many iterations.
Hey,
and
Tara, before you get there,
yeah.
I think Director Weiner had his hand up.
Yeah, go ahead.
President Alvarado?
Go right ahead, Director Weiner, because I can't, on this thing, I can't really see when the hand is raised, so thank you, Lisa, for the save.
Yeah, no, I put my hand up in my little video. Yeah, so from the discussion, I'm getting where there's a tension. And the tension is the board shouldn't say how something's done. And because that's not the purview of the board. But the board should be saying what they want to see done, not how it's done. And so some of this stuff may be more how it's done, and that should be maybe rethought. But when you have the guiding principle language that you have there, that doesn't tell you even what you want to see done. It's too vague. It has no substance. And we have our vision and our mission. They're very vague and have very little to say about how to get there. And so to go all the way to guiding principles from goals just seems to, I wish I could say it more clearly, but it just seems to be fuzzy on what it is that the board really wants. It doesn't say, like, for example, plan, what is this? Where's the one? Something about planning today for the future. We had a situation where in the past the board was not capable of changing because there was no consideration of the future in planning, because planning was an expense that was not on honored very much. So you could plan for a project that was already approved, but you couldn't plan for the future because the future was unknown and we didn't have any specifics, and so there was none of that. And so when the board puts in language like planning for the future today, that just means that we need to shift resources and be aware that, you know, we need to put some resources into future planning. And so I don't think you can get change without being a little more specific. I mean, if your guiding principle is to plan today before the future, okay, but that's not in your guiding principles at all. So, yeah, I think that there's some work that needs to be done about at what level the board is in their lane and what level the board is out of their lane, and how to define that difference, I believe, is the issue.
Director Wiener, I agree with what you're saying, and I think actually the way you said it makes it's pretty easy to understand for me. And I would like to suggest that Tara and I go back with the ELT and we work on this section a little bit, because as I'm seeing it again and I'm listening to sort of the comments, I would actually agree with you that I think we may have erred on the side of a little too vague here. And what I'm seeing is perhaps, you know, taking the guiding principles and putting a little more of the specifics in here. I'm not sure that all of the goals that the board adopted, maybe they might be too specific with the how, but some of these things actually are probably really good to marry with the guiding principles, and I think we could present the board with something a little different. And I'm seeing it a little different now as I'm hearing as well. So that was my comment.
Comment.
Yeah, go ahead, Sherry.
I'm just reiterating, I like the goals. I like the fact that we can pull them out or tweak them, each one of them. I don't like the principal idea at all. And I just want to remind, you know, year before last or whatever, one of our goals was to make sure we had happy employees. You know, every year we make new goals, and it depends on what's going on in our district at that time. The goals that we came up with for last year was a hell of a lot different than we want happy employees. And because we had evolved from being fractured to not so fractured. So having goals allows us to respond to where we're at. And again, this is the one document as directors that we get to spell out what it is that we stand for. And I just don't like the vague principle idea, not even a little bit.
All right. I think they hear you loud and clear, Sherry, Director Stanley.
Thank you.
And I think it's a portion, you know, most of the board does not agree with the way this thing is going. So I think it's very, very smart, rather than keep beating this dead horse, rather than keep hashing this over, for Lisa and Tara to get together and come back with what we're looking for in this section. Because the other sections were fine. I mean, so far so good. But it makes no sense, because it sounds like Tara has a presentation that's geared towards something like this. And maybe that's something that we're just going to keep saying, no, we don't like that. Can you know? So rather than do that and waste, you know, her time and our time, I'd rather see them get together and tweak this section, you know, what we're looking for. We're looking for something specific here, and I think that we've expressed that to her and to Lisa. And it sounds like Lisa is, you know, kind of like, yeah, I now understand what you guys are looking for. So the fact that she can help Tara and they both can get together and get this done will be much better, like I said, than keep saying the same thing over and over again. So Tara, I'm going to put the ball in your court.
If I could clarify one thing to what Director
Sure.
Stanley said, though.
Sure.
So what we don't want to do is, remember, this is a 5-year plan. So what we don't want to do is adopt different goals every single year. And part of the reason why we've had some different goals is because we were in transition. And there's no way that if we create a goal, a different goal every single year, we can actually implement and execute on that. What we're trying to get here is a 5-year plan that the board is comfortable that this is the direction you're giving us. And we do annual goals within the implementation plan, which you haven't seen yet, that spell out what we're doing every year to get closer to those principles or the goals or wherever we land. So the intent is not to create goals that change each and every year, because we'll never be able to accomplish anything if we have too many goals.
I agree with what you're saying, Lisa. And I believe that those goals do get changed in the implementation plan, but not the actual goals of our strategic plan.
Right.
That's correct. So I think I know the difference, and I think Director Stanley knows the difference as well. I'm not sure. I don't want to speak for her, so I'll let you comment, Sherry.
No, I agree. And but one of the things is even though, Lisa, we're doing a 5-year plan, you know, one of the things that's been drilled in is, you know, really we're only looking 2 years out. And, you know, it's very easy to look at these goals, for example, and pick the communication strategy and see that, okay, that one is pretty much done. We can pull that one out at some time in the next 3 years. So I don't think any of us are looking to pull all this out and start all over. We just might feel the need to tweak it just a little bit. And that's appropriate as time goes on.
What may help this conversation, and I'd like to kind of come back to it instead of putting a pin in it or any of it, quite frankly, is to show you what the strategic plan looks like right now. Because I think that may help alleviate some of the concerns about going forward and not being specific enough. And then we can kind of circle back and talk about, because I'm going to need a little more input on what the new goals might really look like. Because last time we kind of pulled the plug on that for something that was a little bit more general so we could continue on this thing. So now that we're going to go back to something that's more specific, I'd like to actually have a little bit of that conversation. But once you've seen the strategic plan in its current form, and obviously this is just a draft, nothing is final, everything's changeable. So is that okay? Can I start there?
Sure.
Okay. And I'm going to.
Hey, Tara, before you go there, you have to go back and do the other thing because it's in here.
Correct.
Okay.
So one of the things that we've been in process, as you know, is working on the logo. So we've now done many, many, many iterations, and we've come up with these 3 just to start. So the idea and the concept, so we started with everything from single water drop, like 800 water drops, waves, like anything to do with water, you name it, we've looked at it. We then kind of focused on this one water drop, like one piece, and then the cycle of that water. So I know you can't, wait, I can do this. So we start with recycled water, and then it becomes drinking water, and then it kind of comes out into the environment. So there's this piece of it that is now going forth and becoming a new cycle. So we felt like that was really important to show in color. We went with a cleaner font, something that was easy to read in any format. It's scalable, all of those pieces. And then we've kind of gotten one where it's really close together, one where there's some space, and then one that's obviously kind of like a bunch of drops kind of coming together to create one water. So we'd love to hear your feedback and opinions on any of this as we move forward into the strategic plan.
Director Stanley?
Could you explain the difference in the colors again?
Absolutely. So recycled water is often called purple pipe. And since that's primarily what you do, we wanted to make sure that that was captured in the logo, but it's also more than that. It's about a recycling moment where it comes from the bottom. So the recycled water is what you get. Then it goes into all of these other phases of the water. So you've got, you know, kind of recycled water and then drinking water and then kind of the environment. Because you guys are such an environmentally focused organization, we wanted to focus on all of those components. So it feeds into this cycle of recycled to people, out to the environment, and then back again.
Okay. Well, if I was picking a piece of jewelry, it would be the one on the far right, but that's not what I'm doing. So I would go with the one on the far left, but I would probably want some sort of explanation somewhere so people understand what those colors are all about and what they stand for.
I love that. I think it could be on the website as understand it, you know, like about West County wastewater, and really it starts with this single moment.
Mm-hmm. About the logo. Director Weiner?
Yeah, unlike Director Stanley, I like the middle one. To me, it's cleaner. It has all the elements that you described. I think the one on the right is perfect for today, 420, but it's a little too busy. Yeah, I think the line. I think what bothers me about the one on the left is the thickness of the white, the drop within the leaf. I like the smaller transition, but I like the leaf and logo motif. It's pretty cool. I think it's kind of vague, the coloring. I like the idea that it's a transition, and that's a cool idea, but I'm not sure that it tells the story on its own, and that's why someone asked for, or the Director Stanley asked for, like an explanation or something. Maybe brown, a little bit more brown before you go purple, because we get both brown and purple water. Maybe that would be a little bit more self-explanatory. Maybe the end product is blue and the interim product is green, although I get your point that it's green for the environmental movement. Those are my comments offhand. It's very clean and not too busy. The middle one, I like that.
Thank you, Director Weiner. Director Spada? Director Spada?
He's muted himself.
Oh, sorry, I was unmuting myself, and at the same time, I think I got unmuted, so then I muted me. We got crossed there. Okay, so I like the ones in the middle. The one on the right-hand side, I giggled a little bit because it looks very, very similar to the new logo for the shops at Hilltop, the mall. So you'll see that coming out more, but it looks very, very much like it. When I looked at it, I was like, wait, that's the mall's logo, which I believe that's where some of the inspiration might have come from.
It was inspired by.
Yeah, I saw it, so it definitely came across. The font, the line, everything pretty much said that. But other than that, I like the concept. I agree with getting an explanation of what the logo is, I think it'll be really cool, because we are spending a lot of money to try to recreate everything, putting it on all of our t-shirts and, you know, everywhere. So we want to let people know what it means. The leaf, I don't know if it can look a little bit more like a leaf. I mean, I get it, but I don't know, something more that looks like a leaf. I don't know if it's possible. I do like the middle one a little bit more as well. I like the font. I think it's very clean. I think it's very new. Overall, I like it. I can already see it in a lot of our documentation and business cards, etc. I would like to see it also in black and white, see how it translates, because we might not always be able to print everything in color, and just to see what it will look like in different variations. I know that whenever we wear our shirts, they might not be a multicolored logo shirt. It might be white or a blue logo. So just figuring out what it looks like in different color schemes. Other than that, I think it looks really good. Good job to the team there.
All right. I see Vice President Sudoff is back with us. I'm going to ask for her opinion.
I'm back, and I'm back right. I love this. As you all know, One Water is my thing. So thank you very much. They're not leaves. They're droplets of water, aren't they?
Yes.
Thank you. I don't want them to look like leaves. They are droplets of water, and I am very drawn to the one on the right-hand side. And I'm very drawn to it because it is very, very tribal to me. It has a very tribal feel. It has a very community feel. It has all of the colors that, it really shows all of the colors that belong to the One Water concept. While the other ones have the colors, they're very, very blended. And to me, the one on the right shows the various stages of the One Water concept, which is why I think I'm so drawn to it. I like the middle one. I like the cleanness of it. But something about the one on the right really shows how you go from the so-called purple water to the cleanness of the energy concept of the earth. It does. I wasn't even thinking about the Shasta Hilltop mainly because I'm not there. But I like the. It seems like it's if you ever see the Mother Earth symbol, that's what it looks like. Yep. The hands opening up at the very bottom. It seems like it's opening up to pour water out. If you've ever seen any type of Native American symbols, that's what it looks like to me. It seems like it's opening up and pushing water out. These little droplets of water out. And I was very drawn to it when I first saw this slide. So I really like it. And I think they did a very good job. It tells a story without telling the story. So while I think the story is really good and words are really good, I think you can have a whole conversation with the right-hand side, and it can open up a whole dialogue on its own. Yes, it needs a story, but actually, no, it doesn't. I think it allows us to tell the story the way we want to. So I think that if we start thinking outside of the box, I think we can make our own story with just this one logo. So I think that we have to start thinking that way for ourselves. It allows us to paint a picture for people instead of having words say it for us. And isn't that what marketing and logos and things like that supposed to do? So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Sudoff.
Bravo, Tara. Bravo. Bravo.
My first reaction when I'm looking at these three logos was, I beg to differ with my colleagues, but the first two are just so ordinary. Now the last one, I said, wow, that's really nice. That's different. I've never seen anything like that. I mean, it just tells the story, as Vice President Sudoff says. It tells the story, and these other ones. I mean, point in case is Director Cepeda thought that was a leaf. I think. Did you think that was a leaf, Director Cepeda?
That's what I thought. I thought that it was a. water droplet inside of a leaf.
Yeah, I mean, that I rest my case right there. I mean, that's why door number 3 or logo number 3 is so different to me. I'm like, wow, I've never seen anything like that. I mean, I've never seen anybody put something like that together. And if we're going to change just to go to something that looks like a, the water, water thing, I wouldn't do that. I would do the last one, which is, it's smart, it's sassy, it's colorful, it tells a story. So for me, I love that one. And that's my opinion. Thank you.
Question.
Oh, go ahead.
Quick question. How much does this look like the logo that's going to come out for the mall, Caesar?
Instead of a water droplet in the middle, it has a tree, but everything else pretty much resembles it. Tara, I'm not sure if you're able to bring it up. I just want to make sure that we're cautious that we don't get so close to the mall that from far away people start coming into our office saying, "Where's Macy's?" Right?
Well, if I can explain a little bit, we definitely, I was actually with Director Cepeda, and when we saw this logo, and we both were very drawn to it. The colors are a little different. They also don't have any purple. Theirs is very much green and blue. Theirs is around, yeah, there we go. So it has a very much inspired by, we like the cleanness of it. We liked the kind of full spectrum of like the cycle, if you will, which works also for our situation. But I wanted to share some of the comments. To be honest with you, number 3 is the one that Tara and I were both very, we love number 3, but I did share it with a few others to get some input, and some of the feeling was that number 3 looked a little too much like a peacock, or was too busy, or they didn't understand some of the how it really tied. So that was some of the feedback we got on number 3. 1 and 2 were a little more clean or consistent with what you might think of with something. So I just wanted to share that information with you, and where we were. And you can see in the shop's logo is it is very similar but different. And I actually liked the tie with it being somewhat similar, because one of our goals is to be in collaboration with our community. So I didn't feel like it was a terrible thing that there was some similarity to it. So anyway, I just wanted to give you that background on the logo, and how it got developed and some of the feedback so far.
Thank you, Lisa. One of the things that I like about that logo as well is that it is different, and I just don't see how, anyway, like I said, I thought that the first 2 were just plain and ordinary, and I'm like, it didn't excite me whatsoever, but the last one truly did. Is there any more comments before we go on to the next items?
President Alvarado, Vice President Sudeth is raising her hand.
Okay, go right ahead.
Just so you know, that Shasta Hilltop is also not unique, because Oaklandish has that same look with that tree. With the stem of the tree, and Oaklandish has that same type of logo. So let's not act like this is something that's like totally unique. It's not. Because Oaklandish has that same logo. It's just black and white and has that tree with the leaves and everything coming out of it. So just saying.
All right. And comment.
Yeah.
Go right ahead.
Go ahead. So if we did go with number 3 and we circled it with gold, that could be brown, and if we made jewelry, because we need some, that would look real nice.
Now you're talking my language.
Uh-huh.
All right. Any further comments?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
When Tara brought it down smaller, the one thing that really popped, other than the logo, was the word wastewater. Is that what we want to emphasize? I mean, we are a wastewater treatment plant, but what is the emphasis? We want to emphasize West County more or wastewater more? It's very big, very bold, and
No,
that was the first thing I saw.
no, I think it was just that we kind of on the with the third one, we didn't think that it would necessarily be the one that people like. So I think we would prefer it to be a little cleaner. I think that the logo or the words on either 1 or 2 are cleaner. So there wasn't necessarily that emphasis on wastewater intentionally.
Okay. I'm like, I know we do wastewater, but does it have to be in bold?
Yeah.
Is easily changed as that.
Nice.
Perfect.
Nice.
Man, that's it. That's nice. I like that. That's different.
Do we want to put, just another thought, do we want to put our name on it? Do we want to just do WCW?
You can do it either way.
I will say WCW is already a wrestling federation.
I was about to say that same
Have you
thing,
seen our
Carol.
meetings? We wrestle too.
People are going to think that we're WCW. We're wrestlers.
Wait, Cesar said we were too.
Yeah, so mud wrestling is now a thing.
Yeah.
Affluent wrestling, I don't think has the same ring to it.
Yeah, no.
Well, I will also, since you brought up the district part of it, or the name part of it, which we didn't really talk about, you will see that we are starting to shift a bit more to West County wastewater and dropping the D. And one of the reasons for that is that because we moved from the at-large to district elections, there's part of that that is a bit confusing. Also, the district part of our name really just speaks to sort of our government structure, which doesn't really tell anybody anything. And really our focus is about what we do and who we serve. And so that's why we've decided that it, is probably a good idea, especially with the switch with the districts for voting purposes and for the directors, to drop that part of it. So that's part of our suggestion as part of the new branding, is to drop the D in our logo and in other areas.
Lisa, can I ask, Mr. President, may I ask Lisa a question?
Sure.
So if we end up dropping the D, and I agree with you, will we also be updating our website? Because now it's wcwd.org. And if we drop it, will we drop it as part of our website? And if we do, are we going to be WCW? And I don't know if that has its own website.
Yeah, we're going to have to.
I'm sure it does.
Yeah, we're going to have to figure that out. I actually had asked that question earlier myself. And I mean, normally when you want to do a rebranding, you definitely want your name to be consistent. So that is something, I mean, WCWD is everywhere. And so it is in our email. So we're going to have to look at how that would end up. It will be a challenge for sure.
Or do we now start thinking, I mean, now that we have a rendition of the logo, do we start thinking of a few new names?
Or we can think of a new name.
That we can, I don't know, because we're going to need a new website.
Or do you have to? You don't necessarily have to. You can always, because legally, we're still West County Wastewater District.
Correct.
So you don't necessarily have to. Just because.
Yeah, I mean, you don't need to get rid of the D.
Yeah, you don't have to legally change, because then we have to legally change from West County Wastewater District to West County Wastewater. And that's a whole legal thing. You can rebrand the logo and still be West County Wastewater without having to do these legal changes.
Right, and I think we don't want to pursue a legal change because that does have even broader repercussions and work, but we would like to just be known, I think, as West County Wastewater and drop the D as when we refer to it in our logo and that type of thing.
All right, I think we're getting a little off key here, guys.
Yeah.
Let's move it along.
Okay. Go ahead, sorry.
WCW is a 501c3 foundation, so just let me know that.
Yeah, and what I was going to say was I have a client, SCB Water, and their website name is Your SCV Water, but all of their email addresses are still SCVWA, because that's much shorter to type when you're talking about a person. So that's another way to go. So they don't have to change their, you know, they actually had the opportunity to completely dissolve their district and had the opportunity to start fresh, but they still wanted to keep the emails short. So you could still keep wcw.org on all your emails and then redirect to wcw.org, but have it be something more like Your WCW or Our One, you know, like Our Water, whatever we decide to change it to. We could change it to that as the domain name, but then keep the wcw.org for the email, so it's not incredibly expensive.
All right, let's move it along, please.
Yes. So, just kind of inspired by that drop, but in general, that's the cover. But the cover is not as important as what I want to show you on the inside. How do I, come on. Okay, so this document starts with a brief about, shows your area, and then talks about how to read the document, which is that we created a 5-year strategic planning initiative in the easy-to-read roadmap format. It identifies 6 areas of focus and outlines the goals and strategies of West County Wastewater will use to accomplish within each of those key areas, showing how the organization will continue achieving its mission and moving towards its vision. So you'll see assets and operation is an area of focus, then the system reliability is a theme, and then assess system and develop asset management is the strategy. So as we kind of continue, this is the theme for the entire strategic vision, which is intention, innovation, and influence. So building from kind of the direction of the board, those are what we feel like are the 3 words to sort of guide us throughout this process. And obviously you'll get a copy of this as well, but just to kind of walk you through it, we start with a letter from Lisa to discuss how this is going to impact actions going forward. So what I want to kind of get into is, now we really like the first vision too, so we just put it in here as a placeholder. And I just selected, because the missions were all the same, were very similar, I just selected the first mission as well. But obviously we can change those, tweak those, but as you see, it would lead the mission to the vision to the values. Now, the executive summary gets into the effective utility management, which is something that the executive team looked at to look at gaps. So they looked at the best practices standard of how to run an organization and looked at where they could potentially improve current organizational realities to really move towards the best practices and then continue forward. So these are the 10 attributes of effectively management water and wastewater sector utilities. So stakeholder understanding and support, product quality, customer satisfaction, employee and leadership development, operational optimization, financial viability, infrastructure strategy and performance, enterprise resiliency, community sustainability, water resource sustainability. Now, there are some cases where you guys are already at the top or better than the top of what you guys are doing. So we didn't break this down in terms of every single piece. We actually just looked at it to see what strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats were for the different sectors. That also helps us build this idea of leadership, strategic business planning, knowledge management, measurement, and continual improvement measurement. So we went with those tenets, like those ideas or concepts moving forward to develop this strong foundation. And then meshing those with what we at the time were the guiding tenets or principles of the board of directors, which were about supporting passion and encouraging leadership and this is the part that would be rewritten based on the current information that we have now, and we can come back to that. So this would be where your goals are. So this is where we add in the board leadership piece of this, and then breaking it down into areas of focus. So asset operations, environmental stewardship, finance, information systems and data management, foundational resources, and customer service and outreach. Each of those areas of focus has these subcomponents of, so asset operations has system reliability and advancement, the different partners, and then safety and risk management. Environmental stewardship has the organization environmental stewardship, workforce environmental stewardship, and then community environmental stewardship. Finance has financial sustainability, revenue, and reporting. Information systems and data has the software of that, the hardware, planning and protocols. Foundational resources include recruiting and onboarding, resource management, and then personnel advancement. And then customer service and outreach includes the identity, the communication tools and resources, and then billing as another key theme. So assets and operations, West County Wastewater is dedicated to protecting the public's investment in infrastructure, expanding local operational partnerships, and mitigating safety risks. The organization will pursue best practices and adhere to standard operating procedures. So these are actually the very specific things that people will be held accountable to over the next 5 years. And then we'll create a timeline in order to achieve these strategic initiatives. So for system reliability and advancement, it's evaluate the system and develop an asset management plan, review and update systems and practices, building standard operating procedures, identify and evaluate critical capital improvement projects geared towards reducing the agency's carbon footprint, addressing sea level rise, improving system reliability, and ensuring technological advancement, reviewing existing preventative maintenance schedules and identifying gaps, complete development and implementation of capital project delivery system. So that's sort of one section all the way down to the bottom. So the granular format of this process. Can I get any questions, thoughts, or feedback kind of so far?
Dr. Stanley?
I don't like it. I think we're getting way too vague, and I was really proud of the fact that we were specific and we could say this is what we're standing for. This is what we're looking to have happen in the next year or two, and knowing that we were going to change it or tweak it as time goes on. Right now, it just feels like everything's too forced together. It's too smashed together. We're trying to make it fit into a square hole, and when it's a round thing, and I'm just not liking it at all. And is this all something you want the board to work on, or is there specific parts that you want the board to work on? And if so, it would be better if we just stuck to our stuff and then worked that out and came back later. But I'm not really feeling this right now.
Director Wiener?
I have no comments at this time.
Director Cepeda?
I'm still reviewing it. I think I want to learn a little more about it, but I see where you're going, and I think that once in the last item, as Lisa was saying, touching base a little bit more on the goals, I think once all that comes back together, it will start looking more like what we might need it. But I'm still trying to read through all of it and understand it more. But I think, I see where it's going. I just want to understand a little bit more.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Vice President Sutif?
I'm good right now. I'm following you. I'm tracking with you.
Yeah.
I will say I like the colors. I'm tracking with you. I like the style right now, the layout. I think it is a lot more user friendly than it was, but I'm tracking. I am tracking.
All right, thank you, Vice President Sutif. My comment is this. I think this is a lot of stuff, a lot of material for us to digest in one day. It probably would have been nice if we had this before the meeting so we can review it. And also, there's a lot of stuff in here that's geared toward the other things that.
What? I'm sorry, I think you broke off, President, unless I'm just missing it.
He looks frozen.
Mr. President,
He does look
you froze
frozen.
there.
Oh, and it was like the most important part.
Well, while we're waiting for him to come back up,
Yeah.
Tara, can you explain the intent of this and what it's to be used for?
Yes. So what I wanted to kind of review was this initial section, like a single section, so we could kind of get through this focus piece, then talk about the system reliability and enhancement and that as a concept. Now, what we've done is sit down and go through meetings and meetings and meetings to determine really, truly what needs to happen tomorrow, what needs to happen next week, what needs to happen 5 years from now, and figure out priorities, group them together in terms of theme and discussion so that there is some organization to this process. And then really, once this part gets done and the board adopts the strategic plan, there will then be an implementation plan that will actually break these down even further into the steps to do to actually evaluate the system and develop an asset management plan. So there is another granular step that the board will not even need to review because that's like literally call John and hire so-and-so. It's not, that part I don't think is useful for the board, but to see the direction of the organization, I think is incredibly useful, and to get your feedback on this particular document. And now that it's kind of been explained what the purpose is, we'll then leave you with it to come back to it and get your comments and incorporate any feedback that you guys have and want to see throughout this piece.
Tara, I think what's missing is that I still don't, well, at least for me, I'm not sure if I'm hearing how, and I don't know if the board is feeling this, who's the audience for this document, and how is that audience supposed to use this information or take away from this information?
So the audience is threefold. One is that it's a useful tool for the board to be able to talk about specifically what the board is trying to accomplish or do. For example, if you're in a meeting with multiple other people at your level to try and broker a solution, you know exactly what your staff has been directed to do. You've had feedback into that, and you're supportive or not, like you know exactly what you'd like to see based on this information. And then you're able to say, we're actually working on an asset management plan. Or for example, in environmental, we're able to say, we're currently conducting greenhouse gas baseline assessments. If you're having that high level meeting, you know what the staff is doing over the next 5 years. So you have that information in front of you always at all times. And you know the general direction.
I'm back.
Yay,
what did I miss?
We were going over how this document would be used by the board.
Okay.
Or others.
Yeah.
Or others.
Finish my thought from before,
Yeah.
which was, I was saying that it would have been nice to have a copy of it, and I don't know what happened to my tablet, by the way. It may be, this may happen again. I'm not sure. But anyway, so where are we now as far as the document goes?
All I'm doing is describing the purpose of the document and then saying that I want to explain this to you and then leave it with you to review in detail, and then get back any revisions, thoughts, or feedback you have on the actual document. I'm not anticipating that we're going to go through every single line item today.
Yeah, no. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, this is
a good strategy.
So that way you're not just given a document and like, good luck.
Yeah. Okay. Let's finish the process like this. finish the document, and then after you're done, I'll take questions. But in the interim, just finish all your explanations.
All right, perfect. So the initial, so that's how the tool would be used by the board. Then the tool would be used internally to make decisions so that Lisa has direction on what are potentially board priorities or what the board would like to see. So they've put their feedback into this overall document. And then she knows that, you know, reviewing the existing preventative maintenance schedules and identifying gaps is an important thing that they need to accomplish. So we've got some consensus on what we need to do in the next 5 years.
Okay.
And then this would lead into an even more granular implementation plan that is tied directly to timelines and action items. So that's where you get into who's calling what, who's responsible for this item, what's going to happen next, what's the next step, when is that supposed to be accomplished, and that becomes a very detailed list of next steps.
Question.
Yes.
We're going to take questions after she's done, Sherry.
Okay.
So going through this very quickly so that you can read it on your own, but these are kind of the different, so you see assets and operations, and then we get very detailed into the identifying capital improvement projects. Partners was another key component of assets and operations, where we identified inventorying current agreements in order to maximize those, assessing current partner relationships and potential future partners, developing strategies to further organization objectives through partner communications and actions, enhancing current partnerships with local public agencies and municipalities, fostering agency inspector partnerships, encouraging the notification of infrastructure outliers. So those are that importance of building external strength to continue to provide internal strength. Safety and risk management. These are, some of these things are obviously already happening, but we want to make sure that we're furthering those objectives. So developing organization-wide safety policies and implement improved record keeping and reporting procedures, evaluate areas of high risk, craft risk mitigation strategies, provide and mandate appropriate safety training for all job classifications, advance the safety committee, review and update the crisis response plan, procedures, and preparedness. So another key component is that safety and risk piece. And then environmental stewardship got its own section, which is not always typical, but for this organization, based on the conversations we've had many times, we felt needed its own section and broke it out accordingly. So there's organization-wide strategies, which would be to conduct greenhouse gases as baseline assessment, develop short-term and long-term environmental stewardship plan, refine climate action plan, establishing clear definitions and parameters. Then there's the workforce focused component of that, which is to develop employee sustainability initiatives program, revise purchasing policies to further sustainability efforts, formalize recruiting process to ensure new hires reflect agency values, provide sustainable options to staff when possible, and then community. So I think that kind of gives you an idea of how this is built out and how you would go through and kind of read this and what it might do for you as a board member versus what it might do for staff. And that it just goes, we've got the whole, all of the different sections. And that is the strategic plan.
All right, so we're going to start with Director Stanley.
Okay, so I understand what you're doing, and so there's a couple things that's going on here. First of all, we have a mandate that we go through and we review our mission, vision, and values every single year. And I don't want to lose track of that. And two, while I appreciate all the work that's gone into this and I can see all the minutia of it, what I don't like about it is that the mission, vision, and values / goals document that we have currently is our document, is the board's document. And what I see, the attempt to create this other thing is more something that the GM / staff does, which is appropriate, which we have always been told would occur. But I don't want to lose the board's ability to say this is the goals, specific goals we want to achieve. I don't want to lose that. I don't want to lose that very first thing that says we're planning for the future by planning. We're taking care of the future by planning today. You know, I don't want to lose that. So this document that you're doing, yeah, it's great, it's wonderful, it's terrific, but there's no reason that we have to lose our goals, our specific goals, for you to create this document. It's not necessary. So I'm resisting this need for us to tailor our goals into something more vague. And thank you.
Yep, thank you. Director Weiner. Director Weiner? He's still with us?
I muted myself so that all of my moaning groaning doesn't get across. So to shorten what Director Stanley said, I just wrote 2 words, tie-in. And I think that's what's missing from this document, but not missing from a lot of our reports that we get from staff. There's always what are the goals that are answered by this particular item and that particular item. So we see that all the time, and I'd like to carry that theme on into this this document, so that would you mind going through page by page, because I noticed that the headings change, and yeah, so environmental stewardship is words that come out of our mission. So there's a tie-in to our mission. And I think on the next page you have the header. Oh, is that? Yeah, so if, for example, if the headers of every page were a tie-in to the higher level organization of our strategic plan. In other words, everything should tie in together as you go down. And I think Lisa described how she approaches the situation that way. So I just think the document doesn't quite pull it all together in that way, where you have something in every section tying it back to higher goals. You know, what are the goals, the strategic goals that we're trying to reach? Here's how finance fits in there, and here's what we're going to do in finance to get there, kind of thing. So each page here is totally separate from, you know, the foundational goals and mission statement and all that. And I think that there could be a tie-in somehow on every page to do that.
Anything further, Director Weiner?
No, just tie-in.
Director Cepeda?
Nothing additional for right now, thank you.
All right, thank you. Vice President Sutter?
Nothing unique to add.
Thank you. I'm urging the board to get this document from Tara, and I'm urging you to look it over very carefully, because obviously this was a quick thing. And I want you to look it over and make comments and send these comments back to her and Lisa so that they can incorporate these comments in. I think that's the only way we're going to get a good working document with everybody's input. And let's face it, we're not going to satisfy everybody. That's not going to happen. But if you can get your stuff in here, the stuff that you think that needs to go in here, and it becomes part of our final product, I think that's what we're looking to do here. So I would urge you all to look it over. If you have questions, I'm sure Tara, you can email her. If you have questions, I'm sure you can email Lisa as well. But let's look at this in earnest. And Lisa and Tara, I would say that you guys need to meet together and come back with those changes that the board is looking for, so we can move this thing forward. Tara, what are your thoughts?
So I came back to the mission and vision because these definitely did come from that, and you can kind of see that the words responsibly managing, you see them throughout kind of these section headers, the subsection headers, let's see,
right
here. So we talk about it a little bit more in this area, but what's interesting to me and what I've really seen through this discussion is that the board really has, or at least certain members of the board really have very clear goals that they want to see accomplished. And so I'd love to, after this, do a goal-specific workshop. Like once they've seen this, once they've read through it, once they've put it together, and really spent some time. Because either we need to do that now or we need to go through, because some of the stuff, as you said, doesn't, as the board has said, are no longer current and need to be updated. And so if we are going to go with a route where we do have these very specific director goals, we need to discuss them and figure out what they are today, and then create that board document that is, I would imagine, a single sheet of paper that's like mission, vision, values, and in the back is the goals. So if that's something that you guys find useful to have, and clearly that is the case, I want to make sure that things we are doing are current and updated and reflect the current vision of the board, and therefore we need to have that workshop, which we sort of had last time, but I think that was also a little confusing. So I want to make sure that we really do that.
All right, Lisa?
Yes, I was just going to say that, again, some of the comments, I appreciate the comments, and some of the things that came out of today will be helpful as we go back and look at this. I also see that we are not making the tie together clear. The why is really what's important here, and we're not saying that this area tie, because it starts with the goal being, let's say, responsibly manage infrastructure, and then it would go into one of the areas that's identified here, and then it would have a specific, these are the 5 goals, or these are the 5 objectives under this. And so we're not necessarily tying it all back so that you can see what this accomplishes. So we will work on that. And I think that will make this have a lot more sense. And then when you saw the implementation plan takes it to that other level, which is where we would be managing from the staff level of all those very specific tasks that we're doing to get there. And I think that would make all of this come together a lot better. So thank you for the feedback today, because that's going to really help as we get this, narrow this down, tie it back, and then, because this really is a document for the board, for the public, for staff to be able to use without getting into all the granular detail that is not necessarily relevant to every single person.
Right, exactly. Okay.
It's basically the bridge. Oh, sorry.
That's okay. Go ahead. Go ahead, finish.
I was just going to say it's basically the bridge document from the board document to the implementation of what they do every day. This is that bridge.
Okay. All right. So does any board member have any further comments?
Director Weiner does.
Weiner.
Go right ahead, Director Weiner.
Yeah, the specifics don't bother me at all. In fact, for me, it's extremely interesting to see how to work from an idea to a reality. And, the ideas are easy to come up with. Implementing any idea is the real art form. So to me, the specifics are just as important as the generalities. And, but really what interests me is, I can stop at some detail as a reader and go, okay, this is more information than I need. And it's not bad to have that information in the document, but it takes a person from, like the board looks at things at a high level, but it has no insight into how to make anything happen.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we have some insight, but I shouldn't say none. But anyway, it's not our purview to make things happen. It's our purview to say, okay, well, this is where we'd like to see us be going.
Right.
So just to say, I don't think that detail is a bad thing. I don't think specificity is a bad thing, and it doesn't make the document better, worse, or better to remove it.
Mm-hmm.
I just think it has to do more with, where do I want to stop as a reader,
right,
in terms of knowing how this is going to get done. Great. Oh, look what they're going to do. Oh, this is how they're going to try to do it. Oh, yeah. Well, I don't need to know about how much fog we're going to remove or do something with, or whatever the specifics are. So.
Thank you. Point taken, Director Wheat. Director Cepeda, anything further? I think he's muted.
Darn it. Nope, nothing else.
All right, thank you. And Vice President Sutter?
No, I think that I think I'm good. I do want to see the document in full so that we have time to sit and digest it away from this very contracted meeting. But I thank you, Director Weiner, for summarizing that well. I don't need all the details, and I don't think most people want to see it at a granular level. Thank you, Ms. Lisa, for saying that. I just think that too many details is too much for most people. And quite frankly, too many details gets us in trouble, because when you put too many details out in the public sphere, you actually, and you veer away from that, you beg for putting the district at risk for not following it to the T. Most often what you need to do is put it at the higher level and let the general manager and their team work through how it gets done. That's what we're here to, just to give the guidance on setting the policy, and then how it gets done is up to you guys. I'd like to see it at a higher level. I think that's most important. So like I said before, I see where you're going with it. I personally like where we're going with it. I would just like to see the full package so I can see it from an overview and soak it in on my own.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Vice President Sutter. And I'll just echo the same comments that I had before. I think we need to see the full document, make some comments on it, get those comments back to our consultant and our general manager so they can, so we can get a better product at the end of the day. And the sooner the better. So I encourage people to, work on this expediently. And I think that's it on this item. So next item, please.
It's adjournment.
All right, we are adjourned. Thank you all for participating.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Thank you so much for your time.
All right, you have a great day.
Thank you, Tara. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.